you can see, I am still not back in the games room. It's still full of mead. Hopefully by next weekend I'll have been able to clear that out of there, because I want to try and get some games of Battlefleet Gothic in. So stay tuned for hopefully a Battlefleet Gothic battle report coming in the near future. Also coming in the near future, I've finished reading Graham McNeil's Lords of the Lance. It's an excellent book, and I'll hopefully do an Old World Book Club video about that at some point. One of the, without spoiling it, one of the traits present within the Lords of the Lance is a love story between two of the main characters, or at least a budding romance, and that seemed eminently appropriate for something to talk about, given that next week is Valentine's Day. So today I thought I would cover the top 5 romantic couples in Warhammer. It's kind of weird when you think about it. I mean, we've got Warhammer Crime, we've got Warhammer Horror. We haven't yet got a Warhammer Romance line, and I'm kind of asking myself why that is. One of the things that I love reading fantasy novels about is the romantic storylines. It's one of the reasons why I go back to the Wheel of Time again and again and again. The different romantic threads that weave through that. I'm not ashamed to say it's one of the reasons that I love the Court of Thorns and Roses series, Tussar books. They are brilliant. Warhammer lends itself very much to the same thing in terms of both the grandiose universes that Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k spin. Whilst in the grim darkness of the future there may well be only war, there is also still room for love. And that's where we go with couple number 5, counting down to the top couple. Couple number 5, Cal Jericho and Yolanda Catullus, from the Lasgun wedding novel in particular. Cal and Yolanda met in what was basically the first ever Cal Jericho story in the pages of the Warhammer Monthly comic, where he was tasked by her family to recover her from the Escher gang that she had run away to go play with. He concluded that the family would not pay to have her back, given the state that she was in. And whilst he didn't actively feed her to a pack of scavies, nor did he untie her, he just kind of left her to cope on her own. They then had numerous run-ins over the years throughout the pages of Warhammer Monthly before eventually being forced to tie the knot in Lasgun Wedding. They are slipping in at number 5 insofar as, whilst they may well be one of the only known married couples, I think one of the only married couples I can think of in the Warhammer 40k universe, they are not what I would call a happily married couple. In fact, I think I would suggest that Cal has a stronger relationship with his servo-mastiff Yotan than he does with Yolanda. Let's move on. Couple number 4, we're going to go back to the old world for this one. I'm talking about, of course, Vlad von Carstein and Isabella. Vlad and Isabella. I've talked about the length in my previous Undead video, but in essence they are the classic romantic married couple, as a married couple for the Warhammer fantasy world. They are a dark love story about the last scion of a noble house of Von Drac, whose father on his deathbed prayed that he would sell his soul even to the devil, to the Chaos Gods, if they provided a worthy marriage partner for his daughter to prevent his sort of lackwit brother from inheriting the elector's title. Thus appears the handsome and dashing and darkly brooding Vlad von Carstein, sweeps Isabella off her feet as he sweeps her uncle out through the tower window to plummet to his death. Of course, we all know Vlad von Carstein, one of the original vampires, as I covered in my vampire video, one of the original vampires from the court of Lamia, Varnesh, one of the top courtiers of New Lamia, and it was his love for Isabella that eventually caused him to grant her immortality when the illness that was besetting her was causing her to waste away. It's their tragic love that when he finally met his end at the hands of the Grand Theogenist of Sigmar, Isabella could not bear to be without him and threw herself onto the stake, impaling herself so that she could die with her love rather than continue in undeath without him. Very lovely couple. Hobbies that they shared together, things like draining the blood of the innocent, rampaging across the empire, court intrigue, scrapbooking. Absolutely well deserving of the 4th spot, only briefly pipped to the post by what I would describe as the top soap opera, for want of a better word, that is, I'm going to simply call elves. Okay, so there is, as I say, not that much in terms of kind of romantic storylines within the Warhammer the Old World, aside, of course, from, as I say, the stuff that appears in Lords of the Lance. But one of the things that we do know is that there is this long kind of epic saga of star-crossed lovers within the courts of the High Elves. So the Phoenix King is married to the Ever Queen, although it appears very much to be a marriage of convenience, because Alariel, the Ever Queen, throughout the background of the Warhammer novels, is constantly throwing herself at various other suits, basically anybody other than the Phoenix King. Altharion gets a look in there, Tyrion gets a look in there, Teclis mopes from the sidelines. Frankly, I'm surprised there wasn't like an evil twin with a mustache sneaking in on there. Don't even get me started on what's going on between Malekith and Marathi. Yikes. So yeah, I'm going to just kind of generally throw the constant romantic drama. It's like an episode of Love Island. Ulthuan is basically the Warhammer Love Island. I'm going to move on from that now because I want to talk about the number 2 spot. We're going back to the 41st millennium here. This is only narrowly pipped to the post by the number 1 spot. Probably one of the best romantic storylines ever written within the Warhammer universe, and of course it's written by the great Dan Abnett. I am of course talking about the star-crossed lovers that are Gregor Eisenhorn and Elizabeth Beckwin. What could be more dramatic and romantic than having a top-level psyker who falls in love with a beautiful untouchable? The very act of being in her presence causes him physical pain, and yet he is madly, deeply in love with her, and at the same time, the chance of them ever consummating their marriage, their love, is completely negated by the simple fact that he can't be in the room with her unless she's got kind of limiting bands and so forth on. She is, at the end of the day, a soulless abomination. And still, their love persists, even beyond death. Absolutely classic. And that's not even touching on what happens once we get into the Beckwin novels. Absolutely would have been in the top spot were it not for the couple that I'm going to talk to you about now. So we've had, vampiric lovers, we've had elven drama, we've had star-crossed Inquisitor love. There is one love, I think, that is defining across all of the Warhammer novels, and I'm of course talking about the love that appears in the Gotrek and Felix novels. Now you might think I'm talking about the love between, the kind of love triangle between Felix Jaeger, Max Schreiber, and of course the vampire Ulrika before she became a vampire. That is a worthwhile love story, albeit actually, it's one of the things I would say about William King's writing, that it isn't written as a particularly loving story. It's a story about obsession, about passion. That is not, in fact, the love that I am speaking of within those novels. No. The love that I speak of course, is perhaps the classic, the most obvious romantic pairing throughout any of the Warhammer novels, and that is Gotrek Gurnisson and Felix Jaeger. I know what you're thinking, okay, they're not perhaps your traditional couple, but in terms of genuine love for each other and devotion, I think what it puts me in mind of more than anything is Bill Nighy at the end of Love Actually, when he kind of turns around to his chubby manager and confesses that, turns out, Chubbs, you are in fact the love of my life. The same, I think, can be said in the simple way in which Gotrek gruffly mutters the words, "Come on, manling," and Felix tags along behind him afterwards. The depth of sorrow that Gotrek feels when he finds himself in the Age of Sigmar and Felix is simply gone, the lengths he goes to try and find Felix again, can only come from a deep wellspring of love. It may not be a traditional romance, it may not, certainly I hope not perhaps a sexual romance, I don't think Felix could survive it, but it is, I think, perhaps the purest love story within the Warhammer universe. And that is why Gotrek and Felix get my number 1 spot. I'm going to just throw this out there to Black Library. I really genuinely, I loved Lords of the Lance. It was a great book. It was a great first novel. I say first, I hope we see many more for the Old World era. I would love to see more of what Graham McNeill brought to Lords of the Lance. That element of classic fantasy love story interwoven with the action and adventure that makes up the rest of the book is genuinely pleasurable, and I would love to see more. I doubt that we're going to get a full-on Warhammer Romance line, and that's okay. But still, Romance is a key part to both science fiction stories and fantasy stories because it is a key part of the human experience. And that's what I would like perhaps to see Warhammer bring more to the fore in future Black Library novels as we go forward. Thank you very much for joining me in this short but slightly silly Valentine's Day video. I'll have a few more bits and pieces coming for you in the near future. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.